Welcome to this examination of one of Australia's most infamous crimes, the Snowtown murders, also known as the bodies in the barrels case. Between 1992 and 1999, in the suburbs of Adelaide, South Australia, a group led by John Justin Bunting carried out a series of killings that shocked the nation. What began as a twisted vigilante mission against perceived societal undesirables escalated into torture, murder, and grotesque disposal of remains. Viewer discretion is advised. This story involves extreme violence and disturbing details. We'll explore the perpetrators, the victims, the investigation, and the lasting impact, all based on court records and historical accounts. Let's begin with the man at the center, John Bunting. John Justin Bunting was born in 1966 in Ingham, Queensland, but grew up in Adelaide's working-class northern suburbs. By the 1990s, he was a charismatic but deeply prejudiced figure, harboring intense hatred for homosexuals, paedophiles, and anyone he deemed weak or different. Bunting saw himself as a protector of society, ranting about cleansing the community of these so-called threats. His influence was magnetic, drawing in vulnerable people from the fringes of society, many struggling with poverty, addiction, or isolation in Adelaide's outer suburbs like Salisbury and Murray Bridge. Bunting lived with his partner, Elizabeth Harvey, and her son, James Vlasikis, who would later become entangled in the crimes. Bunting's key accomplice was Robert Joe Wagner, born in 1971, a close friend who shared his bigotries and violent tendencies. Wagner, often described as Bunting's right-hand man, participated in many of the acts. James Vlasikis, just a teenager when the killing started, was manipulated by Bunting, his stepfather figure, into joining the group. Mark Hayden, another associate, helped with body disposal but was not directly involved in all murders. Together, they targeted marginalized individuals, often friends, acquaintances, or people they knew were vulnerable, under the guise of vigilante justice. But the reality was far darker. Torture sessions designed to extract confessions of fabricated crimes followed by murder and efforts to steal victims' welfare payments. The killings spanned 7 years, starting in August 1992. The first victim was Clinton Trezise, a 22-year-old man with intellectual disabilities whom Bunting lured and strangled. His body was buried in a shallow grave at lower light. Over the next few years, the group escalated. Victims like Ray Davies, a Vietnam War veteran, and Suzanne Allen, an elderly woman, were targeted for their perceived vulnerabilities or simply because they crossed paths with the killers. Bunting and his crew would torture victims in rented houses or sheds, using tools like pliers, syringes, electric shocks, and even inserting objects into their bodies to inflict maximum pain. They recorded screams and confessions on audio tapes, playing them back as voices from the dead to terrify others. By 1997, the murders grew more brazen. Barry Lane, a cross-dressing man who had been in a relationship with Bunting years earlier, was tortured and killed. Gavin Porter, a drug user, met a similar fate. The group dismembered bodies, storing them in barrels filled with acid to dissolve evidence. They impersonated victims to collect Social Security checks, netting around $97,200, though financial gain was secondary to their sadistic ideology. Victims included Frederick Brooks, subjected to horrific abuse like bleach injections and sparklers in sensitive areas before his death. Many were homosexual or transgender individuals, targeted due to the killer's homophobia. The spree continued into 1998 with the murder of Troy Yude, Vlasikis's half-brother, whom Bunting convinced the group to kill after Vlasikis alleged past abuse. Yude was dragged from bed, tortured, and killed. Elizabeth Hayden, Mark's wife, was next, strangled after learning too much. Her disappearance sparked police interest. The final victim was David Johnson, Vlasakis's stepbrother, lured to Snowtown in May 1999 under the pretense of buying a computer. He was tortured, killed, and, in a gruesome twist, parts of his body were allegedly eaten by the killers. This was the only murder in Snowtown itself, a small rural town 140 kilometers north of Adelaide, unconnected to the perpetrators or most victims. The investigation began with missing persons reports, but gained traction when police probed Elizabeth Hayden's vanishing. Tips led them to a disused bank vault in Snowtown, rented by Hayden in January 1999. On May 20, 1999, officers pried open the vault and were hit with a foul stench from 6 plastic barrels containing acid-dissolved remains of 8 victims. The scene was nightmarish: dismembered body parts, torture tools, and evidence of prolonged suffering. Bunting, Wagner, and Hayden were arrested the next day, Vlasakis soon after. The case uncovered 11 confirmed murders out of 12 linked deaths, making it Australia's worst serial killing spree. Vlasakis turned informant, providing crucial testimony. The trials, starting in 2002, were Australia's longest and most publicised, lasting over a year due to the volume of evidence, audio tapes, diaries, and witness accounts. Bunting was convicted of 11 murders and sentenced to 11 life terms without parole. Wagner got 10 life sentences. Vlasakis pleaded guilty to 4 murders, receiving life with a 26-year non-parole period. He was granted parole in 2025, but remains under strict conditions. Hayden was convicted of assisting in 7 cover-ups, serving 25 years. He was released in 2024. The Snowtown murders left deep scars. Victims' families endured unimaginable trauma, with advocates noting a life sentence of grief. The town of Snowtown, innocent in the crimes, suffered stigma. Tourism briefly boosted the economy, but calls to rename it Rosetown never took hold. The case highlighted failures in protecting vulnerable people and inspired the 2011 film Snowtown, which dramatized the events. It serves as a stark reminder of how prejudice and manipulation can lead to horror in plain sight. This case underscores the importance of community vigilance and support for the marginalized. For more on true crime history, like and subscribe. If this content affects you, seek help from local services. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay curious.